I've been watching the news. I've been listening to a lot of commentators, and I'm trying to get a handle on the new narrative beginning to be floated this week. I first heard about it on Sunday, and the news kind of surprised me a little bit, and I thought I would spend just a little bit of time today talking about a very strange narrative coming back, seemingly from the dead.
This is Truth to Ponder with Bob Bierman.
So here we are now in September of 2020, and what a year this has been. But I want to take you back to a different time, about 4 years ago and then about 3.5 years ago. A narrative that was beginning to surface. How many remember starting to hear somewhere, about this time 4 years ago, as we were heading toward the presidential election of Donald Trump as president, that maybe he can't be trusted because, he might be a Russian asset. He might be colluding with the Russians who are going to run interference to help him get elected. Remember that? And all the way into the November election, the rumblings of Russian collusion. The Russians are interfering. They want Trump in office, which from a logical point of view makes absolutely no sense. From a logical point of view, the Russians would be more thrilled with Miss Reset Button Hillary Clinton, who kind of failed on her mission as Secretary of State, but did get them lots of uranium. There's a lot to be discussed on that. I'm not even going to go into it right now. But remember the narrative of Russian collusion. And then the election occurred. And everybody on the TV, at least the mainstream media, was completely wrong. I can remember those few days prior to the election in 2016 to listen to the pundits saying Hillary has a 97.9% chance of having an electoral college landslide. Over 300 and some odd electoral college votes for Hillary Clinton. I can remember back early in the campaign, when everybody said Trump could never be president. Trump would not be the president. He wouldn't even be the Republican nominee. And every step of the way, and this is what I want you to grasp onto here, every step of the way, the pundits on these important topics was consistently wrong. Never got it right. Not only did Trump win the nomination, he went up against a candidate who assumed she was entitled and was going to win. And not only did Trump win, but he won states that Hillary Clinton, frankly, took for granted. States like Wisconsin, states like Michigan, states like Pennsylvania. She thought she had those in the bag. She believed she was going to get Georgia and North Carolina as well. Of course, it was a given. States like, Illinois, New York, California, and a few others, New Jersey, Massachusetts. Of course, they always vote for a Democrat because they don't even think about the candidates they vote for. They look for a D because that's what they've been trained to do since birth. We vote Democrat around these parts. And I'll get to that in a moment. The cultural Democrat that comes out of a union household that doesn't care about any of the issues, 9 times out of 10 knows very little about most of the issues. They just know that they've been told all their life, Republican bad, Democrat good. And they go through their day-to-day life. But getting back to the election, all these all these accusations of Russian collusion. There's several things that we learned after the election. Number one, after it was done in actually December, because that's when the Electoral College meets to certify the election, we're in this transition period, beginning in late November, going all the way to the inauguration in January. Donald Trump is inaugurated, but there's this cloud of suspicion that he cheated. He won because of Russian collusion. And early on, before his inauguration, Donald Trump made an interesting statement that he had been bugged or wiretapped at his Trump Tower home and building an office in New York City. And everybody laughed. You remember hearing somebody say something to like this?
With respect to the intercepts themselves that the chairman referenced, those have not been provided to the committee for our evaluation. But on the basis of what the chairman has said and on the basis of my conversation with the chairman, I can say this. There is still no evidence that the president was wiretapped by his predecessor. President Trump's claims that he was remain as baseless today as they were yesterday. And they were the day before when the directors of the FBI and NSA testified that they were made without any basis in fact.
How many remember when Adam Schiff made that particular statement, that there's no evidence that anybody was spying on the Trump campaign? It simply didn't happen. Nobody was wiretapping. Nobody was listening in. Adam Schiff knew the truth at that time. There's no doubt in my mind. And Adam Schiff willingly got before 330 million American people and lied. He thought nothing about lying. Why? Because they believed if they just got some kind of an investigation going, that in time they would find something. They find something to take this president down. You go back to before the election. You had two FBI lovebirds who should both have been fired and removed from the FBI and their pensions taken away for violating some very important rules on having affairs with each other. Yeah, there is a rule in the FBI against that, but they did it anyway, sending these texts back and forth on a government phone, no less. I guess they thought Hillary was going to win. They believed that all summer and fall, that, hey, there's the 99% chance that Hillary's going to win, but we have to have an insurance policy. That insurance policy going back to 2016, well, it was the Russian collusion delusion story. And we are going to have an investigation start. And we're going to find some way to get a special counsel. And this special counsel is going to do all the research, do all the digging, and he's going to find at least something. I mean, put it this way. If you have an investigator who, by the way, as far as I could tell, after he had his hearing, a long time after the report came out, Bob Mueller, former FBI director, it seemed like he was never in control of any of what was going on in his office. And if you look at all the staff members that he had, it was basically, longtime Hillary Clinton allies and friends. And they spent the next 2 years, starting in 2017, they spent 2 years claiming to be investigating Russian collusion. Now, they found some other small fry, but not the president, not his campaign. I really believe that in September of 2018, I think that Bob Mueller's hit team already knew the results. They already knew that they had failed and had no way to prove Russian collusion. But they let the investigation go on a little bit longer, till right after the election in 2018 that flipped the House. I have to wonder, I have to truly wonder, if the specter and threat of the Russian collusion conspiracy could be proven true in some people's minds. If they had known, I don't know, let's say the report had come out in August, September. I mean, that's almost a year and a half. It's like 16, 17, 18, 19 months of investigators with incredible powers looking to find this Russian collusion. That was the scope. But no, it went right through the election. And then you had people like Adam Schiff on the TV every night, literally from March, April of 2017. I mean, back in January, he's saying that, hey, they never eavesdropped on anything with the Trump campaign or transition team. It took us 3 years to find out that they did. And I got news for you. Adam Schiff knew it at the time, but he is a willing liar. He is a traitor to this nation. He is an absolute liar. He got on the television every night with another mad person by the name of Rachel Maddow, always saying, I have seen the evidence. I have the evidence. The evidence is going to come out. You're going to find out. This is all you heard. 2017, 2018, every night, Adam Schiff on the TV telling you, I have seen the evidence. It's really there. We're going to get him. You're going to find out your president was a traitor, a Russian asset, probably have dirt on him where they can, threaten to, blackmail him. The whole time that Adam Schiff was on the television with all his friends in the media, he had a lot of friends in the media. Boy, did he have friends that would willingly put him on. And because of Adam Schiff's daily lie fest on ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, his daily lies were eaten up. They were the crumbs on the table of the mainstream media, and they lapped it up, every bit of it, and believed it. In their hearts, they wanted to believe this. They wanted to believe this narrative of Russian collusion. They were desperate for this narrative to be truth. I think a lot of us who followed the news wondered ourselves, especially as it kept dragging on and no evidence tying the White House to Russian collusion was there. Yet I believe enough people in enough places believed it because the mainstream media kept peddling it. They believed every word that came out of Adam Schiff's mouth. And Adam Schiff knew he was lying, and he didn't care. Adam Schiff doesn't care about you, doesn't care about the truth, doesn't care about honesty. He only cares about power. You have to know the history of Adam Schiff, where he came from. He's a Weasley little lawyer who the Clintons liked and backed and funded to become a congressman after Clinton's impeachment, as a payback for his impeachment to a Republican congressman from that district that now is represented by Adam Schiff. Adam Schiff is beholden to the Clinton family. for his power. Remember, all the time you would hear on the news these allegations of Russian collusion, that we have an investigation. I remember back in 2017, there was an investigation, and, the House of Representatives was saying, we're not seeing any evidence here. But Adam Schiff, once again, takes to the TV, and Adam Schiff does what he does best. He lies to the American people.
Last night, the majority on the Intelligence Committee made the decision to prematurely shut down the Russia investigation, the only authorized investigation in the House of Representatives into what the Russians did in the last election, what the U.S. government response was, and the issue of any coordination or collusion with the Trump campaign.
See how smoothly he lied, knowing the truth the entire time. And he made his way to every media outlet he could find that would put him on, which is pretty much NBC, ABC, CBS, CNN, and good old MSNBC. They bought every lie that he was selling and never asked him a serious question. All softball questions to Mr. Adam Schiff, the liar from California, the traitor from California, the man that tried as part of a coup to unseat a president. Now, why am I making such a big deal about appearances like this? Is back in 2017 still. They now have what they want. They have the independent counsel, Bob Mueller, and his team. They're going to dig in there and they're going to find that Ruski collusion, and we're going to have a perp walk of the president being led out of the front of the White House to be tried as a traitor. At least that's what Adam Schiff thinks he has the evidence for. And if you don't believe that he's giving a lot of baloney and BS to these networks, and they're eating it all up, here's a classic example from one of the most intellectually bankrupt journalists that I know of, good old Chuck Todd. You can tell Chuck anything, and up Chuck Todd will believe anything you tell him. Here's a classic example of Mr. Adam Schiff and Mr. I want to believe collusion so bad I'll wet my pants himself. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Chucky boy.
But all I can tell you is, reviewing the evidence that I have, I don't think you can conclude that at all. Far from it.
But you admit it's all you have right now is a circumstantial case.
Actually, no, Chuck. I can tell you that the case is more than that, and I can't go into the particulars, but there is more than circumstantial evidence now. So, again, I think...
So you have seen direct evidence of collusion?
I don't want to go into specifics, but I will say that there is evidence that is not circumstantial and is very much worthy of investigation.
I have to ask myself, how long could they keep up that charade? How long do they expect to keep up that farce? How long did they expect the American people to buy into every new lie? Well, unfortunately, many people did in 2018. And all the effort that they had put in to the insurance policy of Peter Strzok. You remember him, the FBI agent? All that effort, all that they did, their insurance effort was to make such a noise about Russian collusion that they could get a special counsel because they knew they would be powerless without it. And with the media clamoring and demanding answers, and the FBI director literally lying to the president at this point of the United States, trying to undo him as well. Robert Mueller is appointed, a team put together, and our country went through a 2-year-plus nightmare. 2 years. And the truth be known, they knew well early on there was no collusion. I would figure that by the time you got into the summer of 2018, maybe no later than September, you already knew. But you wanted to get your last dig in, Mr. Mueller, and the team that you had, to influence the 2018 election, which I think is the real collusion delusion. They knew the answer. They knew they had no evidence, but they sat on everything. And then right after the first of the year, suddenly we begin to hear they don't need the budget anymore. They're beginning to wrap things up. And finally, the report comes out. It's a dud. There was no Russian collusion with the Trump campaign. End of discussion. People like Rachel Maddow felt betrayed. She literally cried on TV, grasping for straws. Maybe there's something else we can pull out of this report and still get them. Many of the TV nighttime hosts were disappointed, and they made it very clear on their programs. And for a period of time, the ratings for the CNNs and the MSNBCs tanked. MSNBC, in particular, took the biggest hit. Matter of fact, all of their hosts that were buying everything without question, they saw everything, they took anything they heard without question and tried to get their viewers to believe it. We did have collusion after the fact. That was the Democrats in Congress, along with Bob Mueller's team, trying to influence the 2018 election. It all fell apart after the election in early 2019, 2 years and $44 million later. Now, why am I spending all this time talking about this? Because, my dear listeners, I'm going to warn you, if you haven't already, the same cast of characters, the same bona fide liars, including Nancy Pelosi, including Chuck Schumer, including Jerry Nadler, and especially Adam Schiff, are already beginning to spin up a new narrative. Here we are in the beginning of September. You know, the Russians are getting ready to interfere with the elections because they want Trump. I have a hard time believing that. I guarantee you that the Chinese and the Russians have one thing in common. They'd prefer a Joe Biden, because with a Joe Biden, America becomes weak, and China doesn't have to honor any of the trade agreements, and we go back to jobs moving back overseas, and the wealthy hedge fund people come out smelling like roses, along with some politicians. So I spent all this time to put you on warning. Listen carefully and tell me, will you believe will you believe a rehash of the Russian collusion delusion again? Because they're going to imply that the Trump campaign is colluding with Russians all over again. There's an old saying, déjà vu, all over again. It's about to happen one more time. Don't bet on it, and don't believe it.
This is Truth to Ponder with Bob Bierman.
Right now, I want to change gears just a little bit, bring in a good friend of this program who's been a part of the weekend show for quite a while. And his name is Frank Salvato. He produces a podcast called the Underground USA Podcast. And he's been giving me some material that we can use on this program. He has a little bit of a dissertation about some of the bottlenecks going on in Congress right now. If you think about it, we're in a pandemic. A lot of people have lost their jobs. A lot of people are in need. And the Democrats in Congress, their idea is they want to use this pandemic to spend trillions of dollars on things that they would never get in social change any other way. And so they are holding up any additional relief. They kindly participated back in March. But now when we need some more help for people whose businesses have been shut down, when we need more help for individuals that are losing everything, Nancy Pelosi, running around with her virtue-signaling face covering, refuses to participate. You want to know why? She cares more about her power than she does you. Here's Frank Salvato.
Thanks for tuning in again to the Underground USA. You can find all of our stuff at undergroundusa.com. A recent statement made by Nancy Pelosi regarding the $2 trillion pandemic relief deal that they're stalled on because of election year politics indicates that she really doesn't understand the American form of government. She said this to a reporter: "We're not budging. They have to move. They have to move. Why should there be a bill that has far less of what the public needs? We have that responsibility, and they're going to have to come up with the money." In a single statement, like so many that she's made over the years, Nancy Pelosi has proven at least one of two things. One, she's absolutely vacuous about the American form of government, how our government is supposed to actually work, and how it's actually supposed to succeed for the people that it serves, not lords over. Or two, she's part and parcel of the Marxist movement to destroy the United States. And I know the majority of listeners are going to sprint to number two, but don't discount number one, because she's not the sharpest crayon in the box. Just as the framers understood when they debated the Declaration of Independence, and remember, there were states that weren't abolitionist states. That was a big hang-up before the actual signing of the Declaration, was what's going to happen with the slave trade, and how will the slaves, if in fact they were freed, how are they going to vote? All the participants in the crafting and signing of the Declaration of Independence, a Republican form of government, which is what we have, not a democracy, as much as the left would like to tell you we have a democracy. And much to my chagrin, what a lot of Republicans keep saying, our democracy, our democracy. We're not a democracy. We're a republic, a constitutional republic. A democracy is mob rule. The majority rules. It doesn't protect the rights of the minority. In a republic, we protect the rights of the minority, and we serve all as we do so. So whenever you hear somebody say, our democracy, stop them right there and tell them we're a republic, we're not a democracy. That's important that we start pushing back on that as hard as we can. In a republic, we never get everything that we want when we're on the political battlefield. It's just not the way it goes. It's not supposed to be that way in the House. It's not supposed to be that way in the Senate. It's not supposed to be that way during reconciliation. The executive branch isn't always supposed to get what they want. The legislative branch isn't always supposed to get what it wants. So the goal here is actually compromise. It's always been compromise. It delivers the essentials that are needed to serve the people and kind of pushes back against the largesse. You know, these omnibus packages that everybody wants to keep jamming through in Congress, these giant, huge bills that cure all, it's the worst thing that we could possibly be doing. We really should have standalone legislation where no amendments are tacked on to any bill, and every bill, singular, has to be voted on by everybody. It will not only slow the federal government down, but it holds the people voting on those bills accountable. You want to start a movement for adding an amendment to the Constitution? Let's have one with two components, term limits and standalone legislation. Pelosi's not budging statement indicates that she's either uninterested or incapable of engaging in government as intended by the framers. Now, this in any world anchored in common sense, and we don't live in that world right now. It would be grounds for the House Republicans to start screaming about her removal as Speaker. She's not doing the will of the people. She's not moving incremental legislation forward. She's demanding that she gets 100% of what she wants, and she's refusing to compromise. That's not the way our government's supposed to work. Therefore, she is abdicating the responsibility of her role, and she's derelict in her duties. Now, will this impeachment for the Speaker's impeachment succeed? No, of course it won't. The Democrats hold a majority in the House, and they just won't bring that to bear. But it would put the progressives on a defensive posture and seize the narrative going into the final stretch of the election. It would make the news cycle about her unwillingness to work with the other side, her unwillingness to compromise to deliver relief to the people. And going into an election year, and remember, the House is always up for election, every 2 years. Going into an election year, that's a good narrative to have if you're attacking someone who's in the majority. She's unwilling to compromise and wants everything her way. Nobody likes a bully. You have to frame her a bully and keep thumping on that. It's an Alinsky rule. If a tactic works, keep it going. Keep the pressure on. Alas, the establishment GOP in Washington doesn't have the capacity to strategize in such a manner. They just don't. They are always on the defensive. They will always be vulnerable to the narrative of the progressives' push. And that's why the progressives keep nudging our country to the left, bit by bit by bit. For the UndergroundUSA.com, I'm Frank Salvato.
Well, Frank, thank you for that commentary. Yeah, when it comes to the real needs of the American people, there are some politicians that frankly just don't care. It's all about power. You are collateral damage for them as long as they win. They lied about Russian collusion. They lied about Ukrainian collusion interference. And now they're bringing back the Russian playbook all over again. When will the American people get smart and stop being made such fools of on a consistent basis? The Democrats are not your friends. By the way, check out our website, truthtoponder.com. That's the word truth, the number 2, ponder.com. We'll be back tomorrow with a longer edition of this program. I hope you'll be back. Please let me know that you're listening to this program. It would mean the world to me.
This has been Truth to Ponder with Bob Bierman. To find out more, visit our website, truth, the number 2, and the word ponder.com. That's truth, the number 2, ponder.com. Truth to Ponder, shining the light of truth in a darkening world.